Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now it's actually finally time to build this model. The first thing that we need to do is take a look at the manual and we'll take a look at the steps. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps that we need to accomplish. In the first few steps you see that we have to assemble the wing section and the cockpit area. It's pretty self-explanatory. We need to take section C1, C18 and C2 and glue them together, as well to paint the inner wells for where the wheels are going to be sitting. The second step is to flip the thing around and put all the cockpit elements inside. You can see that we have to paint the bottom section and all these 3 elements, the joystick, I think the trimmer and the radio. Next, we will be deciding whether or not to put a pilot in or not. And because we're going to be displaying this model as a static model on the ground, we will omit the pilot and we will just skip this step and just go directly to the steps 4, 5 and 6. So we have to assemble the cockpit instrument panel. We will go for this one, which will have to apply a decal. This one is without a decal and just have to paint the instruments. And of course we have the backrest and the back plate for the cockpit. In the end, we will place all these assembled items inside. As you can see, here is a question mark, which indicates that you have to make a choice whether or not to include the pilot or just the seat. In this case, the pilot and the seat are as one, so the seat is glued to his butt. But I've chosen to go with this one because it's simpler, and if it's your first model, you want to simplify things as much as possible. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we will be painting this aircraft in 2 different styles with a brush and an airbrush, half and half. And for the first part of this video, we're always just going to be hand brushing, so if you're going to follow along, this is how you're going to be doing it. I know that in the beginning you don't really have any paints, so you're going to have to buy some. For this video tutorial, I'll be sticking with AK Interactive paints. More specifically, I'll be using this paint for the wheel housing, so here, and I'll be using this paint, and I'll be using this paint, and this basic black for the cockpit. If you have Revell paints, use those. If you have Humbrol paints, use those. If you have any other brand, it's okay as long as they're close enough. Remember that in this video tutorial, we're not going for the accuracy of paints. We're just going for close-up good enough because it's your first model and you just want to, get through it to see how you feel about the hobby. If you don't have paints for the interior, it doesn't matter. If you don't have the paint for the inner wheels, it doesn't matter. As long as you are having fun and you understand how the thing goes together, you're fine. If this is your second model, you can, buy yourself some paints. The easiest way, of course, will be to use Revell because this is a Revell kit, but it's your choice. So let's get cracking. Right, so in this first step, we will be needing only this sprue. So we need this top section of the wing surface, the bottom section, and these intake covers. So for this, you will need one of these, either these or something like this. These are for more general snipping because they have a little tapered edge here and they will pinch the plastic, whilst these are going to be actually cutting into the plastic and making a nice precise slice. To give you a demonstration, I'll use a piece of sprue. So if I use these and I cut, this is how the cut looks like. See, they pinch the plastic on one side and on the other. But if I use these, see, the cut is much cleaner, and again, it's gonna make your life a lot easier. These are, of course, a little bit more expensive than your average snippers, but they both have their use case. So for something like this that I've just shown you, for large surfaces, this is perfect. But for more precise application, this is probably more recommended. So how do you correctly cut things out from sprues? I'll show you here. So the point is to cut a little away from the edge of the actual wing surface, like this, and like this. Be mindful if you're going to be building this model that this is going to be breaking off really quickly if you don't, if you're not going to be careful. So be mindful of this. So let me show you again. Come close, snip, snip, snip. See? We are left with a couple of stubs, and this is the correct way. If you have something like this, you have to go a little bit more further out. So you have to be really mindful here. Pinch, pinch. See what happens? If you go too close with these, they pinch the plastic very close and it can damage the part. So you have to be very careful. Here I went a little bit further and I have this little stub left. So I'll just be using this because it's easier. Here we go. The next thing that we need to do is to clean up the parts. All the parts are now left with these little stubs here. Like here, here, here. All the contact points with the sprue. These are detachment points. The easiest way, again, would be using one of these. Here, now, because you have more control of what you're doing, you can actually go pretty close to the edge and just snip it off. If you go too close, it might be a little bit too much, because right here, I'm already on the edge of the leading edge of the wing, and it can leave a nasty scar, and you have to then sand it out a little bit. So what I want you to do is to go still a little bit further out to leave just a tiny little bit of a stub right here, right? And we'll do this here again. Just a tiny bit. Just a tiny little stub. This is what you're looking for the first cut. Then you do the same thing on all the other parts. Okay, so now we put this aside. We will need to address the little stubs left on the plastic. For this, we will need files. You can get one of these, which is a multi-sided file with various grid sizes. Yeah, it's better. The way that you file is also really important. This is not really good. Try to go at an angle. So find yourself the least coarse file and just go at an angle with long strokes. So do a couple of passes and then check with your finger. If it's smooth to the touch and you don't feel any bumps, you're okay. So let's do this here on the front as well. Couple of passes, again, slightly press, not too much, just slightly. Remember, let the file do the filing and not you. Test for smoothness with your finger, and if it's nice and smooth, you're done. So this is how it looks after filing. You can see that it's gone. You can still see the stub in the plastic, but once this is going to be painted, it's not going to be noticeable. Okay, so here we have to do the same thing. So I'll just speed up this process because it's exactly the same thing. You have to take your file, you put it at an angle, take, I think, 1000 grit or 150 grit paper and just go slightly over, just slightly. Alright, so now we're done filing. We'll put the file aside. Before gluing any parts to the model, it is advisable to test fit if the parts go together, if you have any issues, if you need to fix something along the line. So we will do this by just putting the parts together like so, clicking them in place, and see if there are any nasty gaps or if something is off and we need to attend to it at a little later date. And as we can see here, it's pretty a nice flush fit. There's a couple of gaps here and there, but it's really not important. We don't need to worry about these. Maybe if this would be an advanced class, I would say that you might put a little bit of a putty in here or something like that and then rescribe the pan line, but I don't really think you need to do this in any case because I think it's good. As well, we need to put these little air intakes here. So as you can see, they fit in fine, but there is one little problem in it. I can show you here. As you can see, there is supposed to be an opening here. See, there's an opening here, but there's not an opening here. This is a well, a problem that happens sometimes with parts, and this is excess flash that we need to attend to. We need to remove this because it has to be identical. So we'll just pop it out and we will remove this edge using a knife, or better yet, cutters. A sharp blade is always good to have. Now, cutting this way is not advisable because you can easily cut yourself. I've done this on many occasions, and cutting like this is better, but you don't have any control because you don't see what you're doing. So what I would advise you to do is the following. Put it on the mat, cut into it just slightly, and then scrape off the excess. Just a little bit at a time. If you have one of these side cutters, it's even better because you can come close and you can just snip off a little bit, a couple of chunks of this excess plastic. But be careful not to go overboard because you can see you can quickly cut into this. So it's best, I think, that we just use a knife and scrape off the top edge. This is where expertise and your steady hand come into play. You can also just scrape a little bit, cut a little bit. It's a combination of all these little elements that kind of give the end result. So we can just scrape a little bit. I think this is going to be enough. So now we have, I think, pretty clean line. Just fit this little corner to make it more perpendicular and not that rounded. And now if we compare these two, we'll see that they are identical and we have fixed this little issue. As you can see, I have disassembled the parts again. They fit nice. We've checked that everything is okay. Now it's time to glue. And now we'll be cementing using one of these and these. I have both. You can use one or the other. It doesn't really matter. I would prefer if you have this because it's easier to handle. This one is for bigger, larger surfaces. It sets a little longer than this one, but both of them will do. So I think that I'll be predominantly using this. What you do is you take a little bit of cement, you just put a little bit of cement in these little holes, which are supposed to be the pilot holes that guide the part into place. You flip it around, position it, and press it into place. Push it real good. You take this glue and you go right on the edge. See? Right on the edge. It will flow right inside the panel and make a permanent bond. Just make sure that you keep your fingers, especially the thumb, well away from the actual surface that you're gluing. Otherwise, you are going to be leaving your fingerprint inside the plastic, and you don't want to do that because that's just extra work for you. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So you dunk it in, you just go right on the edge and let the glue flow. Just like this. And this glue really evaporates quickly, so you can do several passes. Right here on the edge, you can do the same. Fantastic. Here on the back, you can press it in a little bit. You can press in the plastic a little bit to make a little better seal. Because again, the glue melts plastic and it will deform it slightly. Super. Now we will take our little intakes. We will go inside and we will snap them into place. Like this. We will take our glue, go on the edges, just like this. Press it down to make sure that it seals properly. Be mindful of where you are touching. I'm touching like this. You see, I have one middle finger on the cockpit side and one thumb on the center where I don't glue anything. I'm mindful of where I put my fingers. The glue will set in about 30 seconds, but still, it's still pliable, so be careful. So if you have glue, go, it's perfect. Fine, see, they snap in place. And take your little glue and go on either side of the model. Just like so. Press it down, and this is it.